Wait, did you just coalesce out of bugs? No, fuck that. Get away from me. Yeah, gotta get out of here. Alright, give me this. What the fuck are you doing? Ah, damn it! Get off of me!
How's it feel?
What the fuck do you mean how's it feel? You just bit me! Alright, let's get out of here. Let's open this door. Alright, get out of here. And... Oh!
So we finally meet.
Hi! Wait, are those blades? Wait, no, no, no! This is Alcina Dimitrescu. For those of you that are completely unfamiliar or have been living under a rock for like the past however long, she is a tall vampire lady that the entire internet wanted to step on them for some reason. I don't get it, I don't understand, I don't want to get it, I don't care. But to fucking step on them, I will never know, but this is her. And to be fair, Capcom knows its audience. I mean, this is what she looks like in the game. They knew exactly what they were doing. Okay, so Resident Evil 8 is actually a direct sequel to Resident Evil 7. You might have guessed this because this is how numbers work. Although it's not always the case in the Resident Evil universe. Alright, anyway, let's get past that. So, the Resident Evil 7 Biohazard features Ethan Winters, who is also the main protagonist of this game, fun fact. For those of you unfamiliar with the events of Resident Evil 7, here's your recap. Ethan Winters gets a call from his long-lost wife, Mia. Turns out she's in a bit of trouble, so he ends up traveling to Dover, Louisiana, and finds himself on the plantation of the Baker family. Marguerite, Jack, Lucas, and Zoe, and an unnamed grandmother who sits in a wheelchair and doesn't really do much. They've been infected by a weird mold that gives them interesting and strange powers. Like Jack, for example, is nigh on invulnerable. Like, you shoot this dude in the head 4, 5, 6 times and he doesn't even bat a fucking eyelid. Marguerite, on the other hand, also gains the ability to produce and control mutant insects. And yeah, Ethan also runs into his wife Mia, who's also been infected by this parasite, and she cuts his hand off. So anyway, hilarity ensues, and Ethan manages to kill pretty much everyone except Lucas and Zoe. Zoe dies creatively on her own, so we won't go into that. We won't go into Lucas either, but he also doesn't kill the grandmother. Turns out the grandmother's the source of all this thing, because she's the aged version of the initial carrier of this mold, who is a next generation bioweapon called Eveline. She turns into her final form as this giant fungus monster with a face. Ethan does his best to try to fight her. Anyway, Chris Redfield flies overhead in a helicopter, drops to him a case that has a gun that's loaded with these things called ramrods, which are anti-regen bullets that they can then use to destroy her. Because, fun fact, the mold allows her to regenerate. This will be important in Resident Evil 8. He shoots her in the head several times, kills her, gets reunited with Mia. Fast forward to the beginning of Resident Evil 8. They are in Europe, and Chris Redfield kind of breaks into their house. Like, they're trying to have a happy life, you know, they're married, and they have a kid now named Rosemary, and, you know, they're trying to do the all-American thing in Europe with the house and the white picket fence and the one child? Anyway, okay, so yeah, Chris Redfield breaks into their house, shoots Maya in the head, like, just hold these bullets with your face real quick. Thanks, bye. Kidnaps the daughter and grabs Ethan, and yeah, they're transporting them out of the city, and they crash, and hilarity ensues. I have not played this game. I'm essentially going off the wiki and a bunch of Let's Play videos, so, like, pardon me if there are gaps in the story. I also just don't want this video to be super fucking long, because yeah, but let's get to why you came here. You didn't come here to hear about Ethan, you came here to hear about the tall vampire woman, so let's get into that. So, the tall vampire woman, also known as Lady Alcina Dimitrescu, was born slightly before 1914 into the noble Dimitrescu family. Given that she's presumed to be the only one, we can call her the matriarch of the family. Anyway, she was born with a weird blood disease. She ends up leaving the country, but she gets it really, really, really into jazz in the 1930s, which is where her wardrobe comes from, which is why she's wearing this dress that is, which is why she wears this dress that is super flattering in places. And she used to perform under the name Miss D with a band called the Paul Boys. Post World War II, the nobility was abolished in her home country, and so she returned to her family home to find it under the control of a cult who was worshipping the Black God. This cult is led by a woman named Mother Miranda. She'll become important. Not going to get into her too much. Just know that she's important. So the Black God is a fungal root, which is the core of a mold supercolony capable of absorbing the DNA of any organism and creating replicas. It was discovered by Mother Miranda in 1919, having consumed corpses and absorbed their consciousness. This isn't foreshadowing. So at age 44, she found herself as part of an experiment undertaken by Mother Miranda, which involved surgically implanting her with a Kadu parasite to test her viability as a host for Ava, Miranda's deceased daughter. Basically, using the mold's ability to assimilate DNA, she added her own daughter's DNA to it with the idea of reviving her because of the aforementioned properties of absorbing consciousness. She would basically be like, hi, I need to find a host. Oh good, you're a good host. I'm going to stick this in you now, and my daughter's going to come back. That's essentially how it works. Anyway, so the Kadu parasite basically is a bunch of worm-like organisms which have been exposed to the Black God, which not only simulates DNA, but also mutates the host organism. The side effects of this experiment for her, they go kind of in her favor in that she can no longer age. She's able to regenerate really well, and she can morph into a dragon. Yeah, she turns into this thing. Yeah. My problem with this is simply that I've never understood why villains always felt the need to turn into this giant fuck-off monster when facing a protagonist. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, you're making yourself a bigger target. Like, you're so much easier to hit. Like, yeah, you're big and strong and powerful, but, like, there's more of you to hit. This is why one of my favorite villains has always been Majin Buu. Because he goes from being this fat piece of bubblegum to this tiny little 3-foot murder gremlin and proceeds to wreck fucking everything. So, like, villains need to think smaller. Like, don't turn into this giant creature that's large and easy to hit. Okay, I'm going off into a fucking tangent here. It also gave her the ability to have retractable claw nails, and it allowed her to grow to the height that we now know her as. She is 9'6". She is by far one of the tallest antagonists in any game I've ever heard of, much less played, much less know about. Apparently there's no tangents. The Kadu parasite didn't really play very well with her inherited blood disease, so it caused her to develop porphyria, which causes the body to produce an excessive porphyrin, which is protein used in the manufacture of hemoglobin. But when your body starts to produce too much of a good thing, shit happens. And as a result, it left her dependent on fresh human blood to stay alive. Like a vampire. Yes, I get it, Maken. That's the joke. The downside to that is it makes her a failure as a host, but Mother Miranda figured, you know what, I have this tall giant vampire lady, I can use her as an overlord to keep the villagers in check, so that's what she does. Mostly because of the fact that she's a giant woman, but mostly also because, you know, she's nobility and they're kind of in her house. So, like, yeah. She's also a bit of a sadist, which you don't really find out till later in the game, but we're not going to touch on that right now. Anyway, she becomes one of Mother Miranda's 4 lords, along with Karl Heisenberg, Salvatore Moreau, and Donna Beneviento. I really hope I pronounced those right. Oh wait, I don't care. Anyway, so one of the ways that she chose to make money, because, you know, she can't, OnlyFans is not a thing in this world, so she has to figure out a way to make money, and so she runs the family vineyards and wine business, and basically she makes this wine that she combines with the blood of women to make this wine called Sanguis Virginis. Apparently this is a traditional wine, which raises lots of questions. It raises quite a few questions. Moving on. So she conducted her own experiments with the Cadu parasite using the corpses of these 3 dead women, which ended up producing these fly-like creatures, right? The flies would basically ingest the corpses and basically replicate their human shape, and they became these 3 women that she adopted as her daughters, named Bella, Daniela, and Cassandra. Because she adopted them because she formed a bond with them in the process. So many more questions. And like her, they also relied on fresh human blood to survive, and they were not a fan of the cold, which, if I'm looking at the demo, they live in a very cold place. So, like, maybe this wasn't a good idea. Like, maybe this should have taken place in the tropics or something. I got nothing. So anyway, for about 70 years, Alcina and her daughter would basically just hire servants and just go kidnap villagers and basically use them as food. Like, they would employ the women and, well, kill them, and then they would just take the men and, like, consume what they wanted and then hollow their corpses out, and then whatever was left of them, they would just stick them on pikes and leave them in the garden as scarecrows. That is metal as fuck, dude. That is metal as fuck. See, everyone thinks she's hot because she's tall, busty, and has a fat ass. I'm just over here like, you make scarecrows out of human corpses? Seriously, what else do you do? Anyway, as you might imagine, the villagers were less than happy with that, and one of them tried to kill her. He got bold and tried to kill her with this thing called a dagger of death's flowers, which is a poisoned dagger, which is also a Dimitrescu family heirloom. And it's just this dagger that has a multitude of different poisons built into it somehow, that he tried to kill her with. He failed, but she also failed by not destroying the thing that can kill her. Again, I don't know why villains do this. Like, here's the one object that can potentially kill me. Oh no, I'm just gonna leave it, let it hang around. You know, I'm gonna put it in my vault for safekeeping, which is precisely what she does. She leaves it in the Dimitrescu family vault. Like, I'm just gonna leave it there for safekeeping. No harm, no foul, no one's gonna find this. Just destroy it. Like, what? Why don't you just destroy it? Anyway, Miranda ends up abducting Rosemary Winters, who's Ethan's daughter, and he leaves her in the care of Alcina. Essentially, she's meant to be killed, and her corpse is supposed to be revived to serve as a host for Ava, right? So Ethan comes looking for her, and things ensue. Like, he gets captured, and Alcina, like, kind of begs to have custody of him so she could play with him, and, like, so she and her daughters can have fun with him. Not in the way you're thinking. Let's leave it at that. But Miranda kind of disagrees and turns him over to Carl Heisenberg to kill. Heisenberg, like most other villains, fucks around and finds out that this guy's very resourceful, and so Ethan escapes. But he ends up getting captured by Dimitrescu's daughters, and yeah, gets strung up in the cellar. And this is about where the demo starts. If you played the Resident Evil The Village demo, this is where it starts. You know, you wake up in a cellar, surrounded by all kinds of gross and weird shit. Anyway, yeah, so they imprison him instead of killing him, and this isn't gonna come back to bite her in the ass or anything, but anyway. So, he escapes, ends up killing her daughters, and kind of pisses her off. Like a lot. Like, she slams his face into the floor, like, multiple times. Like, you come into my house, you kill my daughters, how the fuck dare you? And, like, basically uses his face as a hammer. Uses his face as a hammer and slams him through the basement. Slams him through, and he ends up falling through to the basement. So, at some point during their giant fight, she cuts his hand off. Because, God, it's like Luke Skywalker all over again. Like, what the fuck? Can you not? It's like Resident Evil 7 all over again. Like, can you just keep your hands, bruh? Anyway, considering her personality, I feel like getting his hand cut off was the easy route. Anyway, so they're running through the crypt and whatever, and he ends up finding the Dagger of Death's flowers, right? And they're fighting up through her castle. He ends up stabbing her through the stomach, and she just kind of goes, fuck this, I'm done. Transforms into her dragon form, even as the poisons are like running through her, and she tries to kill him, and she obviously fails. Like, she stabs him in the stomach. He uses the Dagger of Death's flowers to return the favor, like, thanks, bitch. Have one for yourself. And she just kind of loses it and transforms into a dragon and ends up like destroying a bunch of her castle trying to get to him. And then the poisons start acting on her and basically causes her to calcify and die. So he gets away because she fucking dies because she took too fucking long. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. The downside to this is that she's very much the selling point for this game, and she shows up for what essentially amounts to like 5 minutes. She's not in the game a whole lot, and I think that Capcom, I think they kind of dropped the ball on this one. Like, they should not have made her the face of the game if they were going to give her such a minor part in it. And I understand, you're trying to sell games, and, if you're trying to sell games, like, they know their audience, they did this, but I think that really what they should have done is they should have made her, like, the second to last boss before you get to Mother Miranda, like, play her up through the game, like, have her show up at different spots, like, have him go through all the other people, but have her be the last one, and have her have a slightly larger role in the game. But yeah, that being said, yeah, that's Lady Alcina Dimitrescu. There's an opinion that she and her daughter should really have their own spin-off game, and I'm for it. I would really like to play through a game where they're the focus of it, so I can actually learn more about them. And for real, can someone please tell me where I can pick up a bottle of Sanguis Virginis? Hello, and welcome to the end of the video. This took a bit longer to put out than I thought it was going to, but it be like that sometimes. Stay tuned for the next one, coming soon, coming soon.